Chartered Bank, and they will get back in touch with you. Like City, I was told yesterday, somebody's going to call you, and somebody actually did call, and they had a conversation with City, and you felt, it was insightful, isn't it?
It was, and we even agreed on a time we could meet and discuss this matter further, as I say, in person.
In person, one-on-one.
One-on-one.
Very good.
Yes.
Yep. So just write that email, wealth.kenya@sc.com. Okay? Just, you never know, not when the craving will strike, you never know how well you could actually grow your wealth. Angela Mbitho, founder and CEO, Infotrak Research and Consulting Limited, is our guest, commemorating 20 years since she founded this company, the Milestones and all. So, Angela, apart from this research, the political research on the side, what other forms of research do you conduct?
Right. So the public opinion polling that we're known for, believe it or not, constitutes about 2 to 3% of our revenue. Yeah.
All that money is only 2%.
I don't know what that money is.
I think here is the tip of the iceberg story.
Okay.
But
Now let's talk about the iceberg. We figured that you told us about the tip. Now tell us about the iceberg.
So the core of research and what feeds us is, divided into two broad categories. The first one is market research. And so market research would, entail looking at products and services and usage of those products and services. You would work with manufacturing, companies to find out, for instance, why people are not using a specific detergent or what kind of variants they want in terms of. So those are usage and attitude studies. You then have, under that area, market entry studies and feasibility studies, which is quite critical, so that if you have a great idea, CT, you want to start this big thing, it behooves on you to actually, invest some money on research to understand how best to fashion that idea so that you don't fail. So the reason why some businesses or many businesses fail is because they actually don't conduct those market assessment studies, feasibility study. You may think you have a great idea, but the market that you're targeting doesn't think so. Or they think it's okay, but they need for you to actually position it in a certain way that they can use it. So that then would be market assessments, etc. There are also studies called market segmentation. So within your entirety of market or your target market, you would have different people who want to use different types of variances or varieties of your products and services. So you'll find that there are those who are, in the top echelon, and those are people who would perhaps require a service or a product in a specific way, and they don't mind paying a premium price.
Yeah.
And then you have mass market, and you have the middle of the range. So segmentation studies help you understand, what the different segments of your market are and what their needs are. Now that can actually work both ways, for both, the marketing and consumer side, but also for, even for governments and public policy, right? Then we have loyalty studies or customer satisfaction studies. So they work best within the service sector. So you're a hospital, you're a bank, you are anybody providing a service, transport, airline, etc. You want to understand just how satisfied people are with the services, from your ambience to your food to the people that are working there, etc., etc. So we then conduct those studies, and the end goal really is to ensure that you have a loyal customer. So what then are those things that you need to do? What are the indicators that ensure that you have a loyal customer? So we gauge things like trust and the likelihood to recommend. Because you will never recommend anything that you don't like. I won't recommend people to listen to Spice if I myself don't find Spice a credible station. And so those then would be part of the bouquet. Of course, then there are the media research. So audience studies. The fact of the matter is you could be doing a great job here, but if there's no audience for it, it then means that you will not be able to survive because you need advertisers. The only thing that an advertiser is looking at is reach. So how many people are viewing Spice FM today or whatever it is that is there, that is within the media landscape. So those are studies that we do as well. Then we have the social research side. Now, public opinion polling falls within that spectrum. because there we look at public policy and we then support public policy.
Yeah.
So public policy can be on health. So, for instance, many years ago, and I like this study, CT and I come from, I think, the same part of the world. We did a study, a knowledge, attitude, and perception study for a campaign that was meant to help with, acceptance of male circumcision. Now, the communities, Nilotic communities, for instance, do not practice male circumcision. So the research problem then was, what is it that you need to do to ensure that those communities accept this and do not look at it as something that is going against their culture?
Yeah.
So then the research found out that indeed for that campaign to work, and that is behavior change campaign, and I'll tell you why that's critical even today in a moment, then you need to actually look at the angles that will be receptive to that audience. In this case, it does not take away from your manhood or manliness if you actually do this. And you educate the recipient on why am I allowed to say this, the receptor, which is, the sheath, is actually problematic. And can actually ensure or can enhance your susceptibility to getting HIV. Now, if you use that angle with a community that is predominantly virile, then you are not taking away from them the fact that they can still enjoy the activities that they partake in, and you're not saying that their culture is inferior or is wrong
primitive
or awkward. You leave the cultural aspect out of it, and that campaign was very, very successful. I say this because today, for instance, we do have policies that the public are yet to accept, SHIF, SHA, etc.
Yep.
Because you need to undertake this knowledge, attitude, and perception.
You have
long
to start
before
from that point.
That's a starting point.
Right.
Because then you fail. It may be a really good idea, because universal healthcare is a bloody good idea.
Yes.
But you need to understand what the end user, the demand side, actually want to see from universal healthcare, for universal healthcare to work for us. If you don't and you shove it down my throat, even if it is the best solution, I will walk away from it. And that's why CAP studies, as they're called, UN agencies, international agencies invest a lot of money on these things. Another example, which I remember, is long-lasting insect-treated nets, mosquito nets. Mosquitoes or malaria is still number one killer. But for a long time, many communities in this part of the world just rejected those nets. The question was why? Why won't you use this thing and some of them were being given free by government, but people wouldn't use them.
Why?
Because from a cultural perspective, again, you need to understand what the cultures of the people you want to change their behavior is. When you put a net over me, it is concomitant with death, coughing, it's suffocating. And so people would then use these things for anything else. In some communities, they were used for fishing, right?
Not very useful, though.
Yeah,
They were used.
Yeah, not useful, but then because you're not using it for the purpose that it was designed. And so research in terms of knowledge, attitude, and practice and perception helps you understand then what it is you need to communicate and how then that can be accepted. And so, now long-lasting insect-treated nests are actually quite utilized in something that people don't even think about. But this is because research assisted in that particular area. The housing that we have now for the police, that was our research. We did that, just after 2007 election, when the what was that one called? Grand Coalition?
They always grand. And they always a
now it's
coalition.
broad-based. Yeah, that one.
That was a grand coalition.
Yes. But one of the good things with that coalition and the reports that came out of, when you have problems, the question always is, how did we get here? What do we need to do?
Yeah.
And sometimes then you say problems are not such a bad thing because they get you to elevate yourself, is that the governance, justice and law and order institutions needed to be enhanced. And we were then asked or commissioned to conduct surveys. So the remote courts that we now see, where you can actually sit in your house and be in court, that was as a function of the survey we did. That was one of our recommendations.
Right.
To actually decongest the judicial system, because the demand side, which is us, were really getting disgruntled. That you would have your court case sitting for almost 5 years. Nothing is happening. And it was of no fault of the judicial system because they were overworked as well. The courts themselves as physical, entities could not accommodate this demand that we had. So and then for the police, one of the recommendations we made, because we had to do an audit, was you can't expect a custodian of law and order to be a provider of that same law and order when the very basic needs that Maslow talks about, food, clothing, and shelter, are not dealt with.
Okay.
And so the housing was so deplorable that one of our recommendations is give them dignity. If you don't give the police dignity, don't expect police reforms to work. Right?
Angela,
Right.
this is all information. And when we look at governments, when we look at businesses, when we look at nations, there are decisions that are being made. And usually they say, you don't make a decision that would be implemented towards the lives of people if you don't have the requisite information. So this is information. It is knowledge. It's understanding of what's going on. And I have to ask you on a broader level now, because here it is an entrepreneur and it's doing business. But it's critical, vital stuff that could actually be used by governments that could change some of the things that you're talking about. Police housing, affordable housing, healthcare, communities. Do you think, and it's just now, do you think that this knowledge and information is used adequately? And let's talk about Africa. Used adequately to make decisions that would aid in governance. Is it used enough?
It can, certainly the ones that I've talked about were actually government-initiated research, products, also, requests. Now, for us, our mandate is to provide you with insights and tell you this is what you need to do. Now, whether you do it or not, there's only so much we can do. But I can tell you that governments across the globe do have a lot of information. Perhaps if they had a lot more insight, derivation of those reports that are produced, we would perhaps see, improvements in our livelihoods. But it needs for that particular area that is research not to be perceived as auxiliary. So that anybody who's sitting somewhere has someone who's saying, what's the data saying?
Right.
What the data saying means what are the people who elected me saying? Yeah. Because when we conduct research, and this is important for politicians especially to understand, when we come in and we say, you were rated XYZ by your constituents, it's not Angela's data.
No.
I don't
This
belong to
Angela
that
and Bido.
Yeah. It is your constituent telling you, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
Or I'm really very happy with what you are doing. But it should be the same for government. That at every point in time, any policy you want to implement has to be backed up with insight.
But you would want to, and I'm saying this, I'm proclaiming this, you actually would, I'm prescribing actually, you would want to have that information in order for you to be able to deal properly, wouldn't you?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Have you ever conducted any research that looks into how it is the populace view the elected leaders and vice versa, how the elected leaders view the populace who vote for them?
We've done the demand side.
Not supply.
We've not so much done supply side in terms of key informant interviews, and perhaps maybe we have, because we work with governance institutions. So all these NGOs in the governance space are our partners or clients. And some of this information is not information that you'd probably see. But yes, we do conduct key informant interviews with the political class in almost every realm that anything is conducted, whether it be, how people perceive public, trust in public institutions. So yes, to answer your question, CT, is that yes, it is done. Let me tell you how it is done. So for instance, from the supply side, I'll give you a hypothetical example. We can perhaps say we want to understand, for instance, trust in specific ABC public institutions. So the judiciary, the courts, the police, etc. And you can then have indicators that you would be looking at to understand what it is, that people feel about those particular institutions. On the other side, you could also ask the same questions of the supply guy. So you say, what do people think, or what do you feel yourself about how you supply, services to the general public? And then you triangulate or you mirror that information. And when you mirror that information, in some cases there's a mismatch, because indeed the people providing the services think they're doing an excellent job. But in many cases you find, especially with the middle tier and lower tier staff or technocrats, they know. So provided you tell them, and this is one of the tenets of research, that research must provide the respondent with anonymity. So if we were talking about standard group today, and we were doing a survey to understand your satisfaction with how things are running here, we can't go back to the board and say CT said he's not happy about the furniture, the salary, etc. We would just say these are the issues, no matter how much they would ask. This is one of the things that is very clear in the contract.
How then do you verify this information? Let me ask the question differently.
Yeah.
In addition to the key informant interviews,
Right.
what other tools do you use?
So when we are conducting surveys that are perhaps of the nature that you're talking about, one of the things that we do is we have a validation. So there are processes. The first process in research is the inception. And in the inception, you're talking to the stakeholder who has the problem. So that would be the customer, whoever it is. It could be government, it could be an NGO, etc. And the research problem then is discussed in detail. This is discussed so that you can come up with the research objectives, right? So you would then design your research objectives and the methodology that would be suitable to answer to those objectives. You then go and collect the data from the various stakeholders, yeah? And the stakeholders could be both internal, as you had mentioned, and external. You then provide your report and insights, and at that point, you have a validation workshop, right? So in the validation, you're bringing all these groups of people together. Sometimes you don't bring them together in one room. So perhaps if one stakeholder group was general public, you have general public validating the report on their own. They will see everything, but they'll validate it on their own. And they'll say, actually, that's true. That is really what we meant. And sometimes there's congruence. Sometimes there will be people who think, no, that's not what I felt. And you would actually look at those outliers as well.
The way I'm going with this, because sometimes information which is intended to bring about change, yes, does bring about change, but not the change that was intended. Because since it's information, since it's data, it's like someone telling you these are the landmines, this is where they're situated. So you then now have an opportunity to provide yourself with the ways and means of avoiding the mine.
Exactly.
Yes, so whereas the understanding would have been it would help with the implementation of something that would bring about positive change.
Yeah.
It may achieve the complete opposite.
It should not, if the insights and recommendations are succinct, but the onus is always on the client.
Yes.
So if CT decides, I still want to go ahead with this thing as I determined in the first place, but research has told me there are line mines here and there, at least you're going in with your eyes wide open, not wide shut.
There are those who are of this opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think I completely agree with them, but it's their opinion. And the opinion is that when you talk about research questions, there are those who say you can fashion research questions in a manner that more or less predetermines the outcome.
Yes.
What say you?
As I say yes, because questionnaire design is a very fundamental aspect. And a good question should be a question that is not leading. So it has to be objective. It has to be one that does not presuppose and therefore provides the respondent with the opportunity to give you an honest view. So, for instance, if I said CT is wearing
Just call it what you like.
an ogudu.
Let me
I don't know whether that's a muffin. So, he's wearing that.
Ogudu.
Kofia. Ogudu. Huh? Isn't he?
Bas.
It's a leading question.
question. Yes.
Weren't he?
So the question you should be asking is, what is CT wearing?
Okay.
And if you wanted to even, you say, what is CT wearing on his head? Now, some people would say it is a hat. Some other people would say it is a stocking. Some people would say it is a crown, muffin. But then that would give you an indication of what people view that particular garment as.
But
Right?
you were clear in your questioning.
You're clear in your questioning. And that is very important.
So that's their perception.
Yeah.
Can I ask?
If a majority of the people call it a hat and it's an ugudu, change the name.
Sometimes the questioning, not even the questioning, so you get the answers, and I know we're running out of time, but you get the answers from the question.
Yeah.
But the results of that questioning sometimes gets people in their feelings.
Yes.
Especially if you're asking questions about particular individuals.
Right.
Can you do anything about that, or do we just have to deal with the results?
Be a little bit more clear and do. Just tell me, ask me.
People attacked you.
Yeah.
People attacked you and said, this Angela Mbitho, what does she think she's doing?
Yeah.
But what you did is that you presented data.
Yeah.
Can you do anything about the data as it has come?
No.
You didn't cook it? People answered you.
We don't touch data.
There you go. So what do you do when now people attack you regularly?
Well, what we have, let me tell you why we, first of all, let me start by answering the question, why do we do polling? I made a very conscious decision in 2007 that we would do polling for the specific reason that if you want to create strong hegemony, so if you want to be a country that is strong, you have to do things that empower the public. Because information is power. That's our mantra. And so the public needs to actually, or from their perspective, be able to give feedback to the instruments of power and the people in position of power on what it is they feel about anything at all, including whether I was happy with voting or voting for you. If I'm not happy, I should tell you so that you have time within the 5-year window to change that. Then we have a public that is powerful and it is critical. That is why we do it. And so when people come out and say to the mirror, because the mirror has said to you,
You're the ugliest of them all.
You're mirror on the wall. You are not the fairest today. Even if you crack the mirror, you're not going to be fairer. And this is how we have trained our people. That is the mantra of research. You tell the client what it is as it is meant to be. You don't embellish it. You basically provide them with insights, because if you embellish information, you're lying to that person. It is not my business to make MPs happy or governors happy. It is my business, if I'm doing public opinion polling, to ensure that the public's view is understood by those who, in their selves and their beings, should embrace that is which is servant leadership.
Wapende wasipende, you'll tell them the truth. Okay. Angela Mbitho, thank you very much for joining us today. And once again, congratulations on this 20-year milestone. It's a big one. Someone has said, yes, 20 years is something that is big and it should be celebrated. 20 years of Infotrak research and consulting. Angela Mbitho founded it 20 years ago. She's still the CEO. She's still running it, going strong, doing a lot of research in the market and on very many things. It's 8:minute. Good morning.